Hey guys, my name is Adarsh and today I'm going to be talking about web services with Jax-WS. So let's get started. So what is exactly a web service? Web service is nothing but a piece of software or piece of a code or a functionality which is available over the internet. We can say like if you have a code for calculating sums of two digit or just simply say you have a calculator functionality in your code, so that particular calculator functionality you want to expose to the world, you want someone else to use it. So what are the ways for doing that? The first one would be like creating a jar of your code and sending across your jar for the others to use it. And the other one would be to make a web service of your code, saying that if you are making a web service of your calculator functionalities, that other people can access your calculator functionality over the internet with the help of internet, with the help of calling your service through network. They can access the particular methods which you want to expose to them, which you want to expose to the clients, to the person who wants to access your calculator functionality. So that is the other way. So that is what web service is all about. So in the whole tutorial, whenever I say a web service or a service provided by a web service, it will mean a core of functionality. It's nothing more than that. Any web service is nothing but just a class. Okay, whenever I say web service, it basically means a functionality or a class with certain methods. A web service is a class or with certain methods which are exposed to the world for them to use it or to consume it. So that is web service. It is always available over the internet. We don't have jars or APIs kind of stuff with services. There is a difference between web service and API basically. We'll get to that later. It uses a standard XML messaging system. So this communication which is happening between the client and your web service, your calculator functionality, is happening with the help of XML. This messaging system is nothing else but XML. It is not tied to any operating system. It's happening over the internet, right? It is happening over the HTTP protocols and some other protocols. So it is not tied to a particular operating system or even a language, because we are using a standard XML messaging system, to communicate to each other. So there is no point of dependency on operating system or a particular platform or a particular language. So we will see that later too. And the web services are discoverable by a simple find mechanism with the help of UDDI, which we are going to see in our next slide. So what are the components of a web service? There are basically three components. The first one being SOAP, the second one being UDDI, and the third one is WSDL. So SOAP stands, I'm just going to read it out. A simple object access protocol. The second one being universal description delivery integration. And the third one is WSDL. Okay, this is, by the way, WSDL is pronounced as WSDL. Okay, so this stands for Web Services Description Language, and this is kind of the core of a web service, especially in the case of actually for all the websites, yeah, being the REST or SOAP. WSDL is the core. WSDL is something which binds together your client and the server. So what are the web service protocol stacks which are available? So there are like four transport protocols which are used in web services. The first one being service transport. Now this layer is responsible for transporting messages between applications. Like this is kind of the basic transport protocol. We require some protocol to transfer our request and response over the network. So that is what the service transport protocol layer is used for. It includes HTTP, SMTP, and FTP, and etc. The XML messaging system layer is responsible for encoding messages in XML format at either end, being at the client or the server. Whatever request is coming, XML messaging protocol is responsible for converting your language oriented request into XML request. The service description layer is responsible for describing the public interface to a specific web service. And this layer is handled by WSDL, which we are going to talk about in much detail later. The fourth one being service discovery. This layer is responsible for centralizing services into common registry and providing easy publish find functionality. So that is what UDDI is all about. UDDI is actually a functionality with the help of which we can easily find our web services. So as obvious, this layer is handled by UDDI. So In a web service, actually basically a web service is made of two groups, two units at either end that we talked about, right? The client and the server. So in web service terminology, they are called as service provider or publisher and consumer. So what is a service provider? This the service provider or publisher is nothing but the provider of the service, as is pretty much obvious from the terminology itself. So if it implements the service and makes it available over the internet. If you have a piece of code, you have a piece of functionality for the calculator, let's say, and you are making that particular piece of code or service or class a web service, then you are the provider or you are the publisher. Other people can access that piece of code over the internet, so you are actually publishing your code for other people to consume, right? So the web services that you provide to others, then if in that case you are the service provider. Now the web services provided by a service provider, that is you in this case, is called outbound service for the publisher. If you have the calculator functionality and you that service, that calculator functionality web service will be called an outbound services. Okay, and all these services are consumed by a service requester or service consumer. So what is a service requester? As I think it's pretty much obvious at this point. It is any and the consumer of a web service. The requester or the service consumer utilizes an existing service by making or sending an XML request. It sends an XML request to the publisher saying, "Hey, can I use your addition functionality for addition of two sums in XML format?" And you get back the response in XML format back to you. So and in this case, the web services which requester consumes in its code will be called as inbound services. So okay, so here's something that everyone should know the difference of. The first one being inbound and the outbound, because I might not use these terminologies a lot, but it is really good to know the difference.